Good evening, everybody. Let me just say thank you all for being here today. And let me also thank you for singing really loud at the beginning of this thing, because had I been standing up here by myself, it would not have been a joyful noise. So we do appreciate that. Let me introduce myself. I'm Randall Wallace. I'm a city councilman in Myrtle Beach. And I am running for the 7th Congressional District for a simple reason. It's my home. While I was born and raised here in Myrtle Beach, and have served for the last 10 years on the city council here, and am no stranger to Georgetown County. My entire family is from Hartsville, South Carolina, in Darlington County, in Marlboro, Chesterfield, and part of Florence. And so I understand the diversity that this district is going to have in it. We've got a lot of really important issues that we're going to be facing here that we've been working on here on the coast, from I-73 to dredging the Georgetown port. But also, we've got to have a congressman that understands that in Chesterfield County, where they've had fire rates go up from $600 a year to $1,800 a year, that's just as important to those folks. And we're going to be somebody that represents them as well. It's a different world in certain parts of this district than it is in the world that we live in. But we need to work very hard to bring economic development to the area. And I think we do that by playing on the strengths of each one of our counties, whether it's Florence County, who has got 2 huge medical systems, and that's the kind of economic development and things that they want to work on, or dredging the Georgetown port to not only bring new industry to Georgetown, but to protect the steel and the paper mill and the gypsum plant. We've got to do those kind of things. We also need to realize that on a national level, we're a country that has, I think, 3 crises that we have to face. One is an out-of-control spending crisis, as you have heard tonight. One's a jobs crisis, and one's a crisis of spirit in this country. I put together, and it's on my website, certain things that I want to push for in Congress if I have the opportunity to go. They are simply a group called Strong America Now has put together a waste reduction program. Right now, we're spending $1.3 trillion more dollars than we take in. That's unsustainable. We're borrowing 41 cents out of every dollar. The first thing I'd like to do is take the Strong America Now plan and put that across the board in the federal government and see if we can't find what they think and estimate is $500 billion of waste across the board. That's things that you don't have to cut out of programs that you really, really need on a federal level. I also believe that we need to address entitlements. And the one thing that I will say is just like you said, we've got huge unfunded mandates or liabilities coming from these programs. My grandmother, who was 94 years old, passed away on December 7th. She had been in a nursing home for about 11 years. During that period of time, her Social Security paid for nursing care. So the one thing that I want to say to you is, if I go to Congress, I'm going to honor and work to honor the commitments that have been made to those of you who are now getting your entitlement, whether it's Social Security or Medicare, or about to do it. But we need to look at changing that program. So don't let people, the Democrats, demagogue what we want to do. We're going to honor those commitments to seniors, but make them solid for my generation at 41, or your kids, or your grandkids, so that those programs are there, or something like them, when it's time for them to be of that age. I also want to work to what I believe is an important thing, and that's simplifying our tax code. A fair, flatter tax, either one, the fair tax or the flat tax, is better than we have now. I liked the plan that Rick Perry had, which was a 20% flat tax across the board, with a couple of deductions still there. Because I believe that gets rid of loopholes, because we've got some people who aren't paying taxes and some people who are paying a huge amount of taxes. But that's got to be changed, and that way we can begin to turn this fiscal problem around. I also believe we need to develop a merit-based appropriation system, so that the earmark system that had become such a way to trade votes and do this or that and spend your money goes away, but that we still invest in the infrastructure that we need. I-73, dredging your Georgetown port here. And most importantly, I think we need to pass a balanced budget amendment. But we need to learn from the mistakes that were made by one of my favorite people in history, Ronald Reagan. He came to Washington in 1980 and said there are 94 programs that we need to cut from this government. And by compromising and listening, trying to work and thinking that because you had opposition to that, You couldn't cut them. You reduce them. At the end, he only was able to eliminate 12 programs. One of them that he didn't eliminate, but he shrunk, was the Small Business Administration. It went from being budgeted at $2 billion when Reagan came in to $85 million when he left. By 1993, by the time the first President Bush left office, it was already back up to $978 million, almost $1 billion, half of what it was. So you've got to buck up, have the backbone, and eliminate certain things to get this budgetary issue under control. The other crisis I think we face as a country is our jobs crisis. One of the main things we really need to do there is cut these crazy regulations that we have. That is stifling, I think, our big business and our small business man. I'll give you a perfect example. In Myrtle Beach, we've been dealing with pool enclosures. Now, I don't know how many of y'all come to the beach. Y'all live here in Georgetown, so y'all are here. But if you come down here on vacation, as I know Renee probably knows from her young children, there's no bigger babysitter in the world than a pool. You need one. And the folks have been trying to shut that down, saying that these glass pool enclosures are projectiles during a hurricane. Well, I've lived here for 41 years. I've never seen a hurricane in January. And that's the kind of ridiculous stuff that that one-size-fits-all government inflicts on people. We've got an even bigger issue with the Granger plant in Conway. It's coal-based. The EPA, the job-killing agency, is talking about, emission standards and all this that may shut that plant down. Those of you who were here in 1989 when Hurricane Hugo came through remembers we had the only black start in the entire history of South Carolina. We were shut down across the board. There was no power. That was the plant that generated the power that got us back up and going in South Carolina. That's the kind of stuff we've got to eliminate. The other thing that I think we need to address is to bring jobs here on the long term is harvesting our energy resources that we have in this country. Folks, it's staggering the possibilities that we have. There is 2,543 trillion cubic feet estimated of natural gas in the continental United States. In Alaska, they think there's 36 trillion cubic feet there, 17 potential superfields, which would be about 500 million barrels of oil per superfield, and they think maybe 17 billion barrels of oil within the continental United States. Off our coast here is 26 trillion cubic feet of natural gas. Folks, you can put thousands of people back to work with that, with harvesting that kind of energy. We would no longer be dependent on foreign oil and foreign energy because we'd be able to do it here at home. And in fact, we may end up being the greatest exporter of energy in this country by doing that. And we would have the time to develop whatever the next great energy source would be, down the road. For this district, there's no greater, I think, merit-based argument for building I-73 and dredging the Georgetown port than going after the natural gas off our coast, because you got to ship it in somewhere and you got to truck it out some way. So there you go, long term. Plus, there's estimated 1,100 jobs that Henry Brown thought might come to this region of the state if we did go after the harvesting of natural gas and the energy resources that we have potentially off our coast. The other crisis, the crisis of spirit, I think, can be addressed very simply by electing people who haven't forgotten who they work for. They work for you, and you're the boss. And all of the time that I've been on city council, I have always remembered the advice I got, and I was thrilled. And maybe this goes against the term limit of politicians staying for a long time, but in 1996 I got a chance to spend the day with Senator Strom Thurmond, who I think was just a great man in the history of this state. And I was my eyes were this big. I mean, I can't tell you, it was just an exciting day for a young guy, 25 years old, to get to do. And I asked the senator, I said, Senator, any advice for a young guy who might one day serve in public office? And he said to me, always remember that if this guy is sitting at the under end of your desk and he's there with a problem, it's because he didn't think he had anywhere else to go. And it's your job to help him. And if I am your congressman, the #1 priority of my office will be helping you, because you're the person that I work for. All I need you folks to do is just give me that chance. Thank you so much today. Thank y'all.